Welcome everybody to this essential oils continued education class on pain. Rob Richardson is going to be doing that for us today, and I'd just like to introduce Rob. Rob is one of our doTERRA wellness advocates. He's been with us about a year and a half, 2 years now, and he's an osteopath, and he knows a lot about pain, don't you, Rob?
A lot about pain.
A lot about pain, a lot about back pain, and he's an expert in his field. He's been using the oils in his practice for a little while now, and so he's got a lot to share and some great information. So thank you for doing this, Rob. He's done a couple of these before, but I'll turn the time over to you now, mate.
Thank you, Nathan. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so you should be able to all see my screen now. So, some things in terms of tonight's presentation. First of all, anything I say isn't going to be medical advice. Don't treat it like it is. It's here for informational purposes. If you've got any worries about unpleasant sensations, about pain, then do go see your primary healthcare professional.
Rob, can't hear you very well.
No. Shall I move a bit closer? Is that any better?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Still a bit quiet.
It is. It has gone a bit quiet on your end, Rob.
Oh, that's strange. Not sure what's.
That's better.
Is that? I'll sit in nice and close like that.
That's better. That is better.
Okay, cool. So yeah, don't treat anything tonight as medical advice. Obviously, seek the advice of your healthcare professional, your GP, your osteopath, chiropractor, or your therapist for those things. Pain is supposed to draw our attention. So the reason why we have pain in our lives is because sometimes there are threats and risks that our biology sees fit to present to our full attention. So that's why pain is such an encompassing sensation when it comes. It's because it's our systems, our brain's way of grasping our attention and making sure that we change some aspect of our behaviour to take away that pain. That means that it sometimes is there for very good reasons. Sometimes we want to listen to our pain and we want to take action outside of just our essential oils. So if you are worried about pain that you're experiencing, or if pain seems excessive, or if there are other symptoms along with your pain that are concerning to you, do seek the help of a medical professional. Our oils are a wonderful thing, but they're not a complete substitute for our health services as well. Something else to mention with that is that don't as well take anything I say as being gospel in terms of you need to have this oil or that oil. I had a look earlier on through my box of essential oils, and I would say all of those would be able to be useful to some degree in dealing with pain and discomfort, unpleasant sensory feelings. So don't think that anything I say is the way things are and that you have to follow set protocols for any of these things, because it's just not true. Anything that can reassure your system that you are taking action, and most of these essential oils have got some anti-inflammatory properties to them. All of them are going to have an effect, and so don't worry about getting exactly the right one every time. The best way to manage is often just to start and have a go in those things. I'm going to have a look at some particular components of our essential oils that have been shown to be particularly useful for dealing with discomfort. And then we're going to go to some of the blends and some of the products as well and talk about why they're useful as well. So I thought I'd start off with menthol. Menthol, we find it in things like peppermint oil. It's also, because it's in peppermint oil, it's in the past tense blend, the deep blue blend. Menthol is that wonderful, cooling, soothing oil, which is wonderful if we've got anything going on in our heads, if we've got neck ache or that sort of thing. It's lovely for massaging into those places. It's going to increase blood flow. It actually binds onto the surface of the nerve cells and alters the function of nerve cells and the conductivity that they have. So it's wonderful for just easing some of those aches that you might occasionally get, and making sure that that we can relax. That cooling sensation is lovely, particularly if you've been doing something difficult, if you've been out in the garden or something like that. That can be a lovely sensation, that cooling and that easing of pain that can sometimes come along with that sort of thing. Sometimes working really well actually with that. If someone's suffering a bit with the occasional headache or something, then mixing peppermint with lavender actually is a lovely way of getting some relief those things. And sometimes as well, if they're more frequent headaches, and a lot of people get some relief from using those two oils, lavender and peppermint, with migraine headaches as well. Seen lots and lots of people have that, as along with a frankincense maybe as well. A lovely blend to play with. In the lavender, there's something called linalool, which is a wonderful compound. Again, it binds onto these receptors on the surface of nerves, a slightly different receptor from the peppermint. It's really calming. So with lavender, one of the wonderful things we can do is anytime there's anything in the skin, anytime there's, I'm sure we've all touched something that was a bit hot, that we've quickly under cold water. But to relieve pain in irritated tissues in the skin, we can use lavender as a short-term solution to help those things. And anything containing linalool. So that will also be things like basil or clary sage or petitgrain, as well as the lavender. One of the wonderful things about lavender itself is it's so mild that you can use that. Often use that neat, but you can always dilute any of these oils. So anytime I say use an oil, you can dilute them down. Some of them you can use neat. This would be one of those. And the dose is 1 to 2 drops. Something like clary sage as well is high in this linalool. Wonderful massaged into the abdomen, low back, around menstruation. Sometimes it can be quite an uncomfortable time. But it can really ease some of those sensations when you're going through that. So again, a really lovely oil for just helping soothing. Such a soothing oil. If it was a thing, maybe it would be a warm blanket. I don't know. So yeah, fantastic for use. But I would say that your body does get used to lavender after a time, and the effect wears off if you're having it at that time. So you might find that if, for example, you're using lavender to support your sleep regime, that you might find it not quite so effective in relieving pain. Carvacrol's an amazing molecule. You might have seen Dr. Stoyer's video on YouTube. If you haven't, have a look at it on what it can do to the bacterial cell walls. But carvacrol, the same molecule, is also really wonderful and useful for reducing discomfort as well. It actually has effects on the very deepest parts of the brainstem, the periaqueductal brain matter, and it's going to really help to just tone down some of the messages that are being sent from the body to your brain. And it's also really wonderful for reducing inflammation. We're going to find that like oregano, thyme, marjoram. They're wonderful oils to ease discomfort. I would say do dilute, especially oregano, but dilute any of these oils. A lot of these herbal oils are really wonderful, but they tend to be quite strong. So if it's any of those three with carvacrol in, or if it's something like lemongrass, it works with a slightly different molecule, find similar results. They've got these wonderful warming sensations, but that can be a bit too intense if we use them undiluted and can cause some skin irritation. So do make sure you put it in a few drops of carrier oil to use something like oregano, especially for any of those sort of strong herbal oils. Really wonderful for muscular aches. If you've just been exercising or something like that, for supporting your joints. It's really going to do good things in terms of your inflammatory processes of your body to help support those and make sure they're appropriate. But a really wonderful oil for just helping soothe things and relieve. Anyone that's seen Dr. Hill speak recently at conference will have maybe heard about beta-caryophyllene. That's found in oils like ylang ylang, black pepper, melissa, and the copaiba oil, which we're going to get soon. In May, I think we're supposed to get the copaiba oil here. Beta-caryophyllene binds onto cannabinoid receptor 2 on nerve cells. It doesn't bind onto cannabinoid receptor 1, which is associated with the sort of psychoactive effects of things like cannabis, but it is that same class of molecules. So it's going to give some of those wonderful benefits to our inflammatory system. It's going to give wonderful benefits to our immune system generally, and it's going to have a really calming, soothing effect on our nerves. And that means that maybe someone that's experiencing pain over a long duration and wants to just have some relief from that might want to try using anything like ylang ylang or black pepper or melissa or copaiba. They're wonderful, wonderful oils that are all really, really soothing and wonderful for relieving maybe longer standing issues. And also issues that you don't necessarily expect to get better as well, which is worth mentioning. There are sometimes when, we're just going to have pain for a time, and this can be a wonderful thing to just help support us at those times. Anyone that's been on Lindsay's, I've heard Lindsay talk about some of the pain relieving properties of oils. I know she was on recently, and she talked about how Dr. Hill gave her a protocol to use for the pain that she was having after childbirth. She had trouble with the ligaments in the front of the pelvis, and Dr. Hill gave her a protocol to use. He had her use a couple of, had her use the lifelong vitality supplements and the DDR Prime, but also had her use a blend that she made up of black pepper and lemongrass and helichrysum. And she found that amazingly effective. Within days, she could feel a huge change. At the doTERRA conference 2 years ago, I was in Prague with her and the rest of the team, and we were pushing around in a wheelchair at the time. But incredible to see how quickly she recovered from that pain using some of these oils, particularly these ones high in beta-caryophyllene. To help with our pain or discomfort, but most of the time we're going to be using a blend. Blends are much more diverse in the structures that they'll affect, and they're going to have a much broader application for us when we try to manage discomfort. So the first one I want to mention here is probably the flagship pain oil that doTERRA do. It's the Deep Blue Rub or the Deep Blue Oil. Comes as an oil or a rub. My patients assure me that the rub is more effective. I don't know if there's any particular reason why that is, other than it feels really soothing to physically rub something into the tissues. But it's got a blend of wintergreen oil, camphor bark oil, peppermint, blue tansy flower, blue chamomile flower, helichrysum flower, and osmanthus flower extract. It's a wonderful, wonderful oil. All that wintergreen in there. Wintergreen's actually, I remember at school making aspirin out of wintergreen. It can be a precursor to that. It's very high in something called methyl salicylate, which is really soothing. It's going to inhibit these cyclooxygenase molecules in the body, enzymes in the body, which is the target for most modern painkillers, an awful lot of them anyway. Is this same molecule that the wintergreen here is going to have an effect on. We're going to find it's got a wonderful cooling sensation again from things like the peppermint oil in there. The helichrysum oil is going to be really helping to encourage the remodeling of tissues, and really soothing oils like blue tansy and chamomile. We're getting blue tansy again as an individual oil, which is worth having a look at in May as well, hopefully. But the deep blue rub's really going to help if you're sore and achy after a day of exercise. It's going to be good for those who maybe a bit sore around the joints. It's just a really good general first stop pain relieving oil cream. Would say though that if you're on blood thinners already, if you're already taking aspirin for that purpose, or if you're taking, particularly if you're on warfarin, I'd advise caution there. Speak to your doctor or whoever to just check. And to be honest, you're probably better looking at other options because it's going to throw off your counts on your warfarin checks and that sort of thing if you want. But really, really wonderful oil. I can't say how many people I've seen it help with that have been suffering with their back or their neck or their shoulder or their knee or any of these sorts of things, sore muscles, all of those. I personally found it really helpful during a marathon when I started to get a bit soreness in the knees and was able to complete that nice and comfortably without any ill effects afterwards. So for me, it's a lovely oil. The aroma touch oil is another one that is wonderful for soothing and helping relax off sore and tight areas. It's wonderfully boosting to circulation. It's a blend of cypress oil, peppermint, marjoram, basil, grapefruit peel, and lavender. Really, really wonderful. I find that a lot of people maybe who have to spend a lot of time on their feet maybe develop quite a lot of soreness or tightness in the ankles and the calves. I find that the aromatouch oil is wonderful at soothing them. Done quite regularly, so I tend to recommend that if you suffer in those sorts of areas and want to try aromatouch oil, then maybe 3 times a day, 2 drops in a carrier oil. And just massaging that into those areas can really, really make a difference. I've seen lots of people, a gentleman the other day who he on a toe got arthritis in his knee, and that's what the pain in his leg was from. And on examination, just found that actually the knee, while it was a bit of a mess, it wasn't where the pain actually physically was coming from. It was coming from the soft tissues of the lower leg. And, the boost of the circulation, the soothing aspects of the aromatouch oil are actually enough for him to really effectively manage that now. And so, it can be a wonderful, wonderful oil just for easing things up and soothing things, especially where we want to boost circulation to a tissue. If it's maybe a tendons don't have such good circulation anyway, so they always benefit from a little bit boost in that sense from something like the aromatouch oil. Lovely as well as part of the aromatouch technique, which is a technique that you can learn in a day to do on friends and family and relatives and family, what am I saying? You can do that on people, and that's a lovely oil to include in there. But do have a look for the workshops for that. They're advertised on the page somewhere. Do note though that with grapefruit peel oil being in there can be phototoxicity. So after you've used the aromatouch oil, don't expose to strong sunlight on that area for a good 24 hours to avoid unpleasant excessive sort of burn. Now for me, frankincense and myrrh is that's one of the reasons why I'm with doTERRA, to be honest, is we've got these wonderful, wonderful oils. Frankincense and myrrh are both wonderful individually, but I've lumped them together here because they can have a really, really wonderful effect when they're together. They've got that wonderful synergy, which has actually been borne out by the research on them. So everything I've said tonight is, if you go and Google it, if you go on PubMed, which is a repository of all of the scientific literature, the journals that are published, you'll find interesting articles about these, particularly with their effects. All of the things we've mentioned tonight, but particularly frankincense is an exciting one to me because of its effect on some joint problems. I myself suffer from irritable joints that have Sometimes made it very difficult with my hands. As an osteopath, I have to use them a lot, but they've really, really benefited from using frankincense and myrrh within minutes of applying. The soreness that I sometimes get as part of a hereditary issue really eases up. I've seen people with frankincense and myrrh that haven't been able to hold a coffee cup, haven't been able to turn the doorknob. And within weeks of starting applying just some frankincense and myrrh, maybe to wrists, maybe to the top of the neck, have found a return in, ability to use those areas, and reduction in the pain and the inflammation that they've been feeling. So a really interesting one to have a dig deep into. So for anyone that's got quite specific joint issues, they're worth having a investigate of. They can do with those. It's not just oils that we've got with Doa. We've got a wonderful set of supplements. So the Deep Blue Polyphenol Complex is a really, really wonderful, specifically made to support the body's pain systems. So it's got some wonderful, wonderful things in there. I mentioned the frankincense oil. Frankincense oil is wonderful for helping healthy inflammation, but the oil doesn't carry over something called boswellic acids, and they're also fantastic for just easing inflammation and just reducing some of the irritation that our bodies sometimes have that might lead to us to feel some discomfort. So the Terra very wisely have put those boswellic acids into this complex, into this polyphenol complex, to really help just maybe tone down some of the inflammation that's so easy to get in our modern lifestyle and our bodies these days. The turmeric that's in this polyphenol blend as well is a wonderful, wonderful addition. There's something in there called curcumin, which I almost like to think of this being the gold of the gold frankincense and myrrh. It's this wonderful yellow spice, and it's wonderful in combination with those two woods. It's useful for a whole range of systems in the body. It's really, really powerful in its effect on multiple systems. I would recommend that everybody be using curcumin in their day-to-day life, to be honest. We do know enough through science on it to know that most body systems will be supported and helped by it. There's also in that polyphenol complex, there's ginger in there, which is an oil we haven't mentioned as well. Wonderful for supporting muscles and joints and just helping them feel eased. Just again, wonderful for supporting our inflammatory processes. Green tea extracts in there as well, pomegranate, grapeseed, resveratrol, and these are all powerful antioxidant-rich foods. They're going to do a wonderful, wonderful job of just soothing joints and muscles that are maybe achy, helping support a good nervous system, and helping keep inflammation in check. So really, really do strongly advise that you take a look at the Deep Blue Polyphenol Complex. And of course the Lifelong Vitality Pack. So those things we just talked about in the Polyphenol Complex actually are there in smaller amounts, most of them in the Lifelong Vitality Pack already, but we benefit from the extra doses in the polyphenol blend. But in addition to that, we've also got the omega-3 fatty acids that we've got now, the omega or vegan version. That's going to help. That's going to give us these wonderful omega-3 fatty acids, which help change the balance of the inflammatory markers in the body and just reduce the chances of runaway inflammation on a more chemical level. Wonderful for reducing that. And of course, there we've also got a balance of really bioavailable vitamins and minerals. Things like vitamin D in there is really important. If your vitamin D status is low, I can always tell this time of year that I'm going to get an influx of people coming to my clinic because everyone's chronically vitamin D deprived at this time of year in the UK. So making sure we've got some supplement that's providing with any of the gaps in our nutrition is vital for maintaining tissue health, and ultimately that's vital for making sure that we are able to have a healthy system, which, a really healthy system will feel pain less frequently. I saw a couple of questions. I'll just see if I can find my mouse on the screen. Those questions. I saw a couple of questions come up. I'm just gonna. Oh, there we go. Okay, someone was asking what the problems are with deep blue and blood thinners. So that's simply that the deep blue contains methyl salicylate, which is from the wintergreen plant, and it has similar effects to aspirin on the body. So if you're already on aspirin, for example, then it will boost the effect of that, and maybe not in the controlled measure that you'd hope. With the interaction with warfarin specifically is a little bit more complex, and it will throw off the effects of the warfarin, and it will, specifically the first thing it will do is it will mess up your markers that you need to keep your medication at the right levels. But also it's just best practice to make sure you just talk that through with your doctor. Can they affect any medicine being taken? Yes. Again, I would say that so when we take an essential oil internally, it's we're most likely going to have an effect on that medication. But on a case-by-case level, I would always say if you're on medication, do speak to the person who gave you the medication, so the prescribing doctor, to check if they feel that it would be appropriate for you to use any of these. Topical application of most essential oils is going to be not a problem at all, but if you're using maybe higher doses and if you're taking them internally, certainly they could change the balances of what you're doing with your medication. Also got the question, what is the difference between deep blue oil and the rub? Other than that my patients tend to tell me that they find the deep blue rub more effective, there shouldn't be a particular difference as I understand it. They both contain 5 ml of deep blue oil. One of them is dispersed in a cream, and the other one is. But yeah, they both work. So a lot of it's down to preference, whether you want to have an oil or a cream. And someone asking, does wintergreen work on the anti-prostaglandin axis? So many of the things that we've talked about tonight actually work on prostaglandins. So, whether it be carvacrol affecting sort of interleukin 6, or whether it be, loads of the things tonight have effects on prostaglandins and leukins and lots of these things. So yes, wintergreen will have an effect there, as will the frankincense has an effect there. Like I say, a lot of the herbal oils have an effect there. So quite a few. So one more on blood thinners, since it's really common. Is it the wintergreen only, you've been asked? Wintergreen's the one that has a specific effect. There's birch as well that has the same prime component. Again, if you're going to be using an oil, and if your blood thinners have to be really closely monitored, I'd definitely say always check with your doctor. That said, wintergreen and deep blue rub. Well, the deep blue, because it's got wintergreen in, I would say what to use. So I have seen deep blue to be suggested for use on both children in pregnancy. I personally wouldn't necessarily recommend that unless it was on a case-by-case basis. I generally think that, especially in children, there are usually other ways. Children respond very well to some of the very mild oil. My little boy, by the time he was 2, he'd only ever needed to use lavender and melaleuca. They're wonderful, very mild oils, and maybe things like Roman chamomile is another wonderfully mild oil for very small children. And just go by experience a little bit on some of these things as well. But my personal feeling is that they're quite strong oils, and I personally don't use deep blue on my children. But once they're sort of adult sized, of course, I would. And in pregnancy, I just always advise caution, and again, I personally think there are better alternatives during pregnancy, maybe, unless the pain is horrendous, and then consult someone to have a more specific chat about it. Ylang ylang, for example, is wonderful one in pregnancy. Things like lavender and that sort of thing as well tend to be really good. So I hope that's useful. I think we're out of time. It's quite a whistle-stop thing. We've just got the half hour. Any questions, you can always contact me, myself. And yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much, Rob. Really appreciate that, mate. So thank you, Rob. We now, at 8:15, we have the team call or the RSC calls for joint today. So if you want to come over to that, for those of you doing the business, then come and see at 8:15 on the same link. See you later. Thanks again, Rob.
Yes, thank you.